Welcome to Expert Connections. I'm Julie Holton. Whether you're launching a new business or still in the startup phase, we have the top 5 things you need to know. I'm joined by John Mashni, an attorney at Foster Swift Law Firm. Hi, John. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Julie. Great to be here.
What a great topic. John, you work with a variety of people at all stages of business, all sizes of businesses. What is the first thing that people really need to know when they're launching a new venture?
The first thing I always tell people is, why are you starting a business? And be able to answer that question. What do you want to get out of it? Is it money? Is it there's something you really like to do? Is there something you're really good at? You want to turn it into a business? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to do it forever? Just have an answer to the question. Why are you starting the business? What do you want? Do you want it to take over your life? And so then that's all you do every single moment of every day. That's a very different kind of answer than, hey, I want to create a lifestyle, or I just want to make some money, or I just like doing certain things.
Absolutely. Especially because if someone is looking for that time freedom, getting that time back into their lives, then you really need to know going into a new business, how much time that's going to take up. Now, depending on starting capital, many startups start small, possibly one owner wearing a lot of hats. We know what that's like. There can be pros and cons to this, John. What is the second thing that we need to think about here?
So really the next thing I always ask is, so now maybe hey, here's what I want to get out of it. I think the first question after that is, what do you bring to the table in terms of skills and abilities? What can you do, and what are you going to provide, or what services can you offer in the business itself? And just thinking about, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Just having an understanding of what you can do and what you can't do. I think it's very, very important to realize those things before you go any further.
John, one of the best pieces of advice that I was given when I was launching my own business was to really think about, when you start to bring people into your team, who are you bringing in and what are their skill sets? For example, if you bring in Uncle Joe to run QuickBooks for you, but maybe it's not Uncle Joe's forte, but he's willing to help out, you need to know when you're going to outgrow Uncle Joe. Just as an example, nothing against Uncle Joe. He's probably great. But, every one-man band needs a team, whether you're ready to bring people on board or whether you're looking at those outside experts. I like to call mine my personal care team, my personal support team. Wow. John, what kind of team are we talking about here? What kind of people do we need to help support us?
That's a great question, Julie. That's the third thing that I think every entrepreneur needs to do when you start a business, is build your team. And I think it just applies across the board. And if you don't do it, then you're going to fail. You're going to have failures. It's going to be, a ball is going to get dropped somewhere. And at a minimum, I think if you're starting a business, you need, self-servingly, a good lawyer, right? Sometimes multiple lawyers. You need a good accountant, oftentimes a good insurance agent, sometimes a banker. And then depending on what you're doing, you need to think about the answer to the last question is, what skills do I bring? But what skills do I not bring? And then build the team to fill in those gaps. That's the importance of the team, because the bottom line is, if you think you can do everything, you're not going to be able to do anything. And you need the team. And sometimes, like you're saying, sometimes it's like build the bench too, right? What if one team member can't do a piece of it, right? Well, I need someone else to come in. So sometimes it's not just like build one, the starting team, like who's sitting in the wings waiting. It's important to have a team, and then the team really depends on why you're in it, right? If time is really important and money not as much, maybe you need someone to fill some of the tasks that take up the time. So it's important, build that team, and it's super specific to whatever you're going to be doing.
I like how you said that too. If you're trying to do everything, you're not going to accomplish anything. So how do you find and build this team that you're talking about?
Ultimately, it's very difficult sometimes to find the right people, right? And that doesn't mean you don't start the team. It just means, who do I have right now? For example, I know people who they're looking for a new accountant. Well, my advice is, make a list of all the accountants that ask for referrals. And then before you meet with people, figure out the non-negotiables, figure out what exactly you're looking for in an accountant, and then just go talk to them. If they're willing to meet with you, great. You can interview them, ask them your questions. If they're not willing to meet with you, then cross them off the list, right? It's not, don't overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. Just go with the best that you can and then move forward from there.
All right, John. So we're giving 5 tips that you need to know to start a business. So number 1, you said, why are you starting the business? Number 2, what skills and abilities do you bring to the business? Number 3, what team do you need? Because you're not going to have all the skills. So who do you bring onto the team? And then number 4, how do you find and build that team? That leads us to number 5, our last question here. What skills do I need to develop to be successful?
I think this is the one that most people miss. They get their business off the ground. They start to have some success potentially, right? Things are going well, making money. And then they kind of hit a plateau. They flatline a little bit. And why is that? It's because what I've noticed, even myself and in other people, is we're not thinking forward. We're not thinking far enough to say, what skills do I ultimately need to develop in myself to get better, right? Get better at what you do, build more skills that are valuable to other people. Don't just think, hey, I have everything I need at the beginning. Think, what do I need to grow into to be successful and to get what I ultimately want to get from the business? Back on the first question, why are we starting it?
John, these are great tips. Thanks so much for sharing your insights on what you need to know before starting a business. To learn more from John and the attorneys at Foster Swift, just head to our website, expertconnections.tv, and click Legal Connections. You can also find us on YouTube. Check us out and be sure to subscribe.